West Africa Democracy Radio.
WADR.
WADR.
WADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The Malian authorities and MINUSMA agree on the implementation of the mechanisms for a smooth withdrawal of the blue helmet. Suspected jihadists kill at least 15 civilians in an early morning in eastern Burkina Faso. International charity MSF warns against the escalating nutritional crisis in Nigeria before the onset of the lean season.
Escalating violence, disrupted livelihoods, displacement, high food prices, and epidemics are all contributing to a significant health and malnutrition crisis.
And aggrieved Liberians protest Western cluster's neglect of social responsibilities.
No talking of from the mine to the port of Moravia until further notice. Number 2, terminate the contract with Senegal with immediate effect. Number 3, bring all the contracted companies.
Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Tofik Abdul Nasser with Newslink.
Glad you could join us. The United Nations and the Malian Transitional Authorities intended to closely work together to facilitate the withdrawal of the peacekeeping force by December 31, 2023. The two parties met Wednesday in Bamako, at the end of which the head of the United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission said he had presented his withdrawal plan to the Malian Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation on Monday. The meeting, held at MINUSMA's request according to its chief El Gashim I, provided an opportunity to discuss an orderly and secure withdrawal of the mission by the end of the year. Abdullahi Hassan with more details.
Bamako and MINUSMA have agreed on the need for greater cooperation and coordination to ensure that the withdrawal process is completed within the allotted time frame. The head of the mission, El Gashim I, stressed that several mechanisms will be set up at technical and political levels with representatives from Mali and MINUSMA to deal with the various aspects of the process. Other aspects such as the withdrawal of civilian and uniformed personnel, the transfer of tasks, logistics and security and strategic communication will also be taken into account. For El Gashim I, the mission and United Nations are determined to ensure that this withdrawal plan is implemented within the stipulated time frame. He asked for the express support of the Malian authorities to achieve this. Mali's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation reassures that the Malian authorities have thus agreed to take all the necessary measures to facilitate MINUSMA's urgent request in the meantime. MINUSMA has more than 15,000 men deployed in Mali since 2013 to, among other things, protect civilians from terrorist attacks. Created by the UN Security Council in April 2013 through Resolution 2100, its mandate ended last Friday following the adoption of Resolution 2690 at the request of the Malian authorities.
Abdullahi Hassan reporting there. Meanwhile, the United Nations says it will continue to support Senegal in its quest for lasting peace and sustainable democracy. The statement followed President Macky Sall's Monday declaration of his non-candidacy in the 2024 presidential, a debate that in part sparked deadly confrontations in the country. The UN now joins a list of organizations, continental and regional organs, including the ECOWAS, governments and civil society groups, to commend the Senegalese head of state for what has been described as a landmark achievement. Farhan Haq is deputy spokesperson for the UN Secretary General.
We issued a statement yesterday in which the Secretary General saluted President Macky Sall's decision not to run in the forthcoming Senegalese presidential elections as a strong demonstration of statesmanship and leadership and an important example for his country and the world. The Secretary General reaffirms the unwavering support of the United Nations to the government and people of Senegal in their efforts to consolidate their vibrant democratic tradition and promote peace, stability, and sustainable development.
That was Farhan Haq, a deputy spokesperson for the UN Secretary General. In Burkina Faso, no fewer than 15 people were killed in the eastern region by suspected jihadists on Wednesday. Local and security sources disclosed that the deadly attack has forced hundreds of residents to flee for safety, a situation that only adds to the growing displacement crisis despite state efforts. Francis Boniface has more details.
Several other villages sustained injuries during the occurrence by the insurgents who stormed the village riding on motorcycles, shooting sporadically into the air. The raid wasn't different from previous attacks in the area, which were characterized by killings, injuries, arson, and vandalism of homes and basic infrastructure and looting, a chain of actions confirmed by a resident. For fear of attacks, villagers Wednesday morning began fleeing towards Bokande, near the eastern regional capital, where residents from Nindango, a neighboring village, have departed for the same reason. Violence by groups linked to terrorist organizations persists in this region despite continued military presence and oppression, a security expert said. The latest attack comes not long after 71 men, including 31 soldiers and 40 civilian army auxiliaries, were killed in 3 attacks by suspected jihadis in the Centre-Nord province. The spiraling security situation in Burkina Faso, which first began in 2015, has killed more than 10,000 people, including civilians and soldiers, and left more than 2 million internally displaced.
Francis Boniface filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Meanwhile, Medicine Sans Frontiers (MSF) warns of an escalating malnutrition crisis in northwest Nigeria. The International Medical Organization says the current humanitarian response is insufficient to avert a potential catastrophe in the coming months. To reinforce its activities, MSF has launched new outpatient and inpatient therapeutic feeding centers in states across the region largely affected by insecurity, poverty, and climate-related factors, among others. Speaking exclusively to WADR, Dr. Simba Terima, country representative in Nigeria, says the numbers are expected to increase at the onset of the lean season, which runs from May to August.
In the northwest of Nigeria, escalating violence, disrupted livelihoods, displacement, high food prices, and epidemics are all contributing to a significant health and malnutrition crisis. This year, Medicine Sans Frontières has noted an elevated number of malnourished children in its facilities even before the onset of the lean season. An increase in life-sustaining humanitarian support is urgently needed, with an emphasis on preparing for the anticipated seasonal peak. Our inpatient therapeutic feeding centers, which have been operational since last year, have seen an admission increase of 26% from January to May, with 10,200 admissions in 2023, as compared to 7,500 in 2020. Presently, across Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Zamfara states, MSF either directly operates or supports 35 ambulatory therapeutic feeding centers and 10 inpatient therapeutic feeding centers.
Dr. Simba Terima is the country representative of MSF in Nigeria. Now, dozens of aggrieved residents of the affected communities within the employ of an iron ore company, Western Cluster, have started a series of protests demanding the company to live up to its corporate social responsibilities as outlined in the Mineral Development Agreement. The company explores and mines iron ore deposit in Western Liberia in line with its Mineral Development Agreement with the Liberian Authority valued over 100 million United States dollars. WADR's Darlington Popper in Monrovia has this report.
Western Cluster Liberia was given the right to mine about 30 million tons of iron ore annually from the region for the next 25 years. However, since the start of the company's operation last year, citizens in the host community have accused the company of not living up to the mineral development agreement signed with the government of Liberia. Sam Marshall is the head of the aggrieved protesters. He outlines their demands.
1. No trucking of ore from the mine to the port of Monrovia until further notice. Number 2. Terminate the contract with Senegal with immediate effect. Number 3. Bring all the contracted companies on a round table with the federal communities. Number 4. Complete the road.
In addition to the demands, women here say they are marginalized as the company is not engaging them.
Yeah, the issues that are affecting the women is that Western Cluster came and they are not employing, they are doing contractor work. And I get some women that is much educated and know one or two things in the company, but they are not going through. I call to Western Clusters and people that are listening to me that they should empower women.
In a rather apologetic manner, the company's extended public relations officer and administrator Samuel Brown acknowledged the protesters' demands and appeal for calm.
We've been trying to work on some, even though there are few delays. But we hope that we will get a delay done away with and then do the right thing.
The assurances seems not to have relieved tension as the aggrieved citizens have set up roadblocks to prevent the transportation of iron ore from the region until their demands are met. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. The Malian authorities and MINUSMA agree on the implementation of mechanisms for a smooth withdrawal of the blue helmet. Suspected jihadists kill at least 15 civilians in an early morning in eastern Burkina Faso. International charity MSF warns against the escalating nutritional crisis in Nigeria before the onset of the lean season, and aggrieved Liberians protest Western Cluster's neglect of social responsibilities. Still ahead is the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio.
We are transmitting live on Facebook at West Africa Democracy Radio English Service, including YouTube. Now, 18 million doses of the first RTS malaria vaccine will be sent to 12 African countries between the beginning of 2024 and 2025. This is the announcement made yesterday by the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the Alliance of Vaccines. A glimmer of hope in sight for the eradication of malaria in the African continent, which alone recorded 96% of deaths linked to the parasitic disease. Details are with Oge Obi Erika.
According to the Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, the vaccine developed by the British pharmaceutical group GSK has already proven its effectiveness and safety in 3 countries, namely Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi, which received over 1.6 million doses. The WHO director believes that this testing phase has led to a reduction in severe cases of malaria and a decrease in the number of child deaths. Beyond the 3 test countries, 30 others have declared interest in receiving the next doses. Here's Farhan Haq, a deputy spokesperson for the UN Secretary General.
Allocations were also made for new introductions in Benin, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cameroon, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Liberia, Niger, Sierra Leone, and Uganda. WHO understands that the rollout is a critical step forward in the fight against one of the leading causes of death on the continent.
According to the global health body, every minute a child dies from malaria, and the use of the RTS as vaccine would be an asset in the fight against the parasitic disease. The first doses of vaccine are due in the 3rd quarter of 2023 before their deployment in 2024. WHO UNICEF and the Vaccine Alliance estimates that the annual demand for malaria vaccines is expected to increase to between 40 and 60 million doses by 2026 and even 80 to 100 million doses each year by 2030.
Ogeobi Erika with that report. In Ghana, members of the National Food Suppliers Association spent the night at the premises of the National Food Buffer Stock Company, NAFCO, to demand payment of money owed to them. The suppliers, who traveled from all regions across the country, saying the government owes them $24 million for food that was supplied to senior high schools across the country from 2021 to 2023. A spokesperson of the group, Kwame Amedume, who spoke to WADR, says that they will continue to stay and spend the night at their premises until the arrears are paid in full.
The government is owing us money for the supplies we've done since 2021 till date, running into millions of cities, 270 million. We've done everything possible to get our monies paid to us, which has not yielded any positive results. There were some interventions which we saw that it was necessary for us to call off the picketing with the hope that they were going to get us paid before today. Unfortunately, after those interventions were made, that stopped us from picketing here. We have not heard anything from the government. Nobody has called us to tell us where and how our money is going to get paid. The 2 weeks we were promised that our money was going to get ready. The 2 weeks is gone, and we've not heard anything from government. It's a serious issue that we are putting before government because most of our members rely on loans to do the supply. They can no longer continue with the supply because some have even used their properties as collateral to secure the money. That collateral is in the verge of being taken over by the credit. That's why we are picketing. We are not picketing only for today. We are going to be here till tomorrow next if our money is not paid.
Kwame Amedume is the spokesperson for the National Food Suppliers Association.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
From Accra, here is Atiwin Mbilalosin with the major headlines from the Ghanaian dailies.
Greetings from Accra, Ghana. Welcome to the newspaper review for today, Thursday, July 6, 2023. Let's start with the Ghanaian Times newspaper. The screaming headline: MPs unanimously back LGBTQ+ bill, recommend passage of 25-clause bill to prescribe same-sex relationship others. That's on page 12. Then some banner headlines: Ghana, US must stand up against corruption, according to the US ambassador to Ghana. Then Ghana to build 1,000 electric vehicle charging station in 5 years. That's according to Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam. And then NAFSA members spend second night picketing at NAFCO, demand payment of 270 million Ghana cedis owed them. And that's the story we brought to you on Newslink this morning regarding the school feeding caterers and their demands for payment of their arrears. From the Ghanaian Times newspaper, let's go to the Chronicle newspaper. The screaming headline: Speaker Bagbin orders all against anti-gay bill rise, but 275 MPs stayed glued to their seats. That's the screaming headline. Some banner headlines: Please vote for me, I'll win 2024 for the New Patriotic Party. That's according to Alan Chairmanting. And then the final banner headline: Fire officer jailed for beating bailiff. And one more banner headline: Lepers grateful to Dr. Mahmoud Baumia for giving them Ghana cards. So those are the headlines in the Chronicle newspaper. The Daily Dispatch newspaper, the screaming headline: My ideas could have saved Ghana from 17th IMF program. Alan Chairmanting takes on the New Patriotic Party and National Democratic Congress government. Then some banner headline: Elmina celebrates Bakatu Festival. and Obu honored at Gambia Law School. Then defamers of Opoku Prempeh apologized over busy internet contract award lies, and over 540,000 men had sex with other men in Ghana in 2017, according to a report. So those are the headlines in the Daily Dispatch newspaper. The New Crusading Guide newspaper, the screaming headline, "I will break the 8 for MPP," that's according to Alan Chermanting. Then Fete Kakakraba chiefs fight police and Gomwa stool over land guard attacks. That's a banner headline. Other banner headlines, Agona NDC MP gives free cars to constituency executives, and then African countries could abandon fossil fuel for renewables based on informed transition coverage. The final newspaper we're going to look at today, we're going to do some business stories. The Business Finder newspaper, the screaming headline, "Mining, Ghana needs a clear vision for broader economic growth." That's according to a tax expert. And Republic Bank family plans way forward. And finally, Ghana Tourism Development Project, World Bank Lord Dr. Awal. And finally, Dr. Baumia facilitates Ghana card registration for cured lepers. And those are the headlines in the major dailies in Ghana today. My name is Atiewin Imbila Lawson from Accra, Ghana. Back to you in the studio.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The United Nations and the transitional authorities in Mali have expressed their intention to collaborate closely in order to facilitate the withdrawal of the peacekeeping force by December 31, 2023. A meeting took place on Wednesday in Bamako, during which the head of the United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission announced that he had presented a withdrawal plan to the Malian Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation on Monday. The meeting, initiated at the request of MINUSMA, the United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Mali, provided an opportunity to discuss a well-organized and secure withdrawal of the mission by the end of the year, as stated by El Gashim I, the mission's chief. Our guest, Adib Sani, a foreign policy expert, walks us through the implications involved in withdrawing the Blue Helmet forces from Mali and proposes potential solutions to address the issue.
Well, I don't know whether to call that extension, because usually when a mandate ends, they have a period of time, they have to gather their logistics, put themselves together before leaving. And within the normal scheme of things, it was, even though effectively it ended through the UN vote, they were supposed to be given that time up until the end of the year to completely pack out of that area. But that notwithstanding, I'm happy that there's still some contact between the two sides that in the past haven't cooperated the way the international community wanted it to be. There was so much mistrust between the UN and, of course, the Malian government. But the fact that today they are able to talk and agree in principle on what is to be done going into the future, I think is gratifying. But I do hope at the same time that after they leave, the Malian authorities would be able to contain the situation so it doesn't become a cataclysmic spectacle for the West African subcontinent.
Right. What implications do you think the withdrawal of the Blue Helmet soldiers can have on the country?
Okay, so when I first heard this news, I screamed that Jenin and other groups, Al-Qaeda and ISIS affiliated, are going to have a field day. Then I got the opportunity to speak with members of the Malian government who contended that already, even with the presence of the UN peacekeepers, they were not able to do much to stem the tide of violence in the country. And some of them indeed said that the peacekeepers were mostly restrained to their bases and did little to stop the violence. Hence, there's no need for them to be there in the first place. Okay, but from my perspective as a foreign policy analyst who has followed the issue for some years now, I think one is going to embolden the militants. Some of them would be disillusioned to think that this is a win for them. Secondly, it doesn't speak well of the UN system so far as peacekeeping is concerned, because there are some other parts of the world where you have UN peacekeepers. So when something like this happens, it might, cascade down to other areas of the world where there are UN peacekeepers.
So what solution will you suggest to the situation?
I would wish that the Sub-Regional Bloc takes keen interest in this issue. If the UN peacekeepers would have to be replaced with another force, I think that could help. We have the Accra Initiative, which brings together Ghana, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Togo, Mali, and the rest, to really brainstorm through what the next line of action is, how Mali can be helped to push back these terrorists that have been emboldened for some time. And I must say, it's in the interest of all countries within West Africa to ensure that there is peace and security in Mali, because whatever happens there has, effects on us all.
Adib Sani is a foreign policy expert. Sankole Janko joins us now with sports news.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Guinea will take on Mali in the CAF Under-23 Africa Cup of Nations third and fourth place playoff on Friday. Guinea suffered a semi-final defeat to Egypt, while Mali were beaten by host Morocco at the same stage. While Egypt and Morocco awaits for the final, the two West African countries will battle for a third-place spot to secure qualification to the Paris 2024 Summer Olympics next year. Africa is allocated 3 automatic spots at the global showpiece, 2 of which have already been taken up by the two finalists, Egypt and Morocco, according to CAF official website. The winner between Guinea and Mali will be the third African country to secure qualification for the biggest sports competition in the world. Elsewhere, CAF has conducted the draw for the CAF Women's Champions League Côte d'Ivoire qualifiers at the Mohammed VI complex in Rabat, Morocco on Wednesday. The draw was in the form of 2 groups of 5 and 1 of 4 for one zone. An interesting draw was conducted for the West African Football Union WAFU Zone A, where the qualifiers are set for 5 to 13 August in Liberia. Determined Girls of Liberia were seeded as the host country. They will face AS Monday, Dakar Sacre-Cœur of Senegal, and Sierra Leone's Mobuemo Queens. For the WAFU Zone B, the matches will be held in Nigeria between 18 and 31 August. Nigerian champions Delta Queens were drawn in Group A alongside Union Sportive of Burkina Faso, Atletico of Cote d'Ivoire, and Sam Nelly of Benin. In Group B of the zone, Apem Dakar from Ghana have been drawn against AS Gar of Niger and Togo's Friend of the World Football Club. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. In Ghana on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Christian Mukidi has been on the console, and Maudu Juve has been streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Do interact with us via social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Tofik Abdul Nasir. Good afternoon.